There's an archive, not in a major museum, not in a prominent university, hidden in county courthouses, tribal offices, state basements, and private collections across America. Birth certificates with corrections. Census records with classifications that change decade by decade. Letters from government officials ordering reclassification. Photographs of families that official records claim don't exist. Tribal enrollment cards with notes revealing systematic exclusion. These documents prove something American history has tried to erase for 300 years. Black Indians weren't rare exceptions. They were common. They were families, communities, entire towns where African and native peoples lived together. Married together, built lives together. For 3 centuries, these archives have been hidden, not destroyed. That would be too obvious. Hidden, buried in bureaucratic systems, miscategorized, made difficult to access, scattered across thousands of locations so no one could see the full pattern. But now, genealogists and researchers are finding them, digitizing them, connecting them, and the story they tell is so different from official history that it changes everything. This is the story of the Black Indian Archives, 300 years of hidden history, and what happens when it finally comes to light. Let me show you what's actually in these archives. Not theories or speculation, physical documents that prove Black Indian families existed in numbers official history never acknowledges. First, census records showing systematic reclassification. Track any family with Black native ancestry across censuses from 1870 to 1930, and you'll see it: the Bass family, Virginia, 1870, mulatto, 1880, Indian, 1900, Indian, 1910, Indian, 1920, colored. Same family, same location, same names. 4 decades listed as Indian or mixed, then suddenly reclassified as simply colored. This pattern repeats hundreds of times, thousands of times. In Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Florida, families who were recognized as native or as mixed for decades, then systematically reclassified. Second, tribal enrollment cards with damning notes. The Dawes Commission created enrollment cards from 1898 to 1914 for members of the 5 civilized tribes. These cards have handwritten notes that reveal exactly how decisions were made. Applicant claims Cherokee ancestry through mother. Appears to be Negro. Recommendation, Freedman Roll. Family speaks only Creek, lives in Creek Nation. Negro features predominant. Denied enrollment by blood. 3 generations of residence in Seminole Nation. African appearance. Freedmen classification. These notes prove that people were rejected, not because their claims were false, but because of appearance. They spoke native languages, they had native parents, they lived as tribal members. But they appeared Negro, so they were denied. Third, correspondence from state officials ordering reclassification. Walter Plecker, Virginia's Registrar of Vital Statistics, sent thousands of letters between 1924 and 1946 ordering county clerks to change racial classifications. The following families are listed as Indian in your records, but are actually colored and should be corrected. List of surnames. Please change all birth certificates, marriage licenses, and death certificates accordingly. His letters included lists, sometimes dozens of surnames at a time, of families to be reclassified. Entire extended families had their documented identity erased by administrative order. Fourth, birth certificates with visible corrections. Request birth certificates from the early 1900s for people with Black native ancestry, and you'll often find evidence of changes. Indian crossed out, colored written in, sometimes in different handwriting, sometimes in different ink, sometimes clearly done years after the original document was created. The dates of these corrections often coincide exactly with policy changes. Virginia's Racial Integrity Act in 1924, Jim Crow hardening across the South, pressure on tribes to separate by blood from freedmen. Fifth, photographs that contradict official classifications. Family photographs from the late 1800s and early 1900s show people with features suggesting mixed African native ancestry, but official records for the same people claim they were only one race or the other. Look at the photographs: high cheekbones, straight hair, skin tones that don't fit simple categories, features that show obvious mixing. Then look at the census record: Negro. The photograph preserves truth the documents tried to erase. Sixth, marriage records between black and native people. Thousands of marriage certificates document unions between people listed as Indian or mulatto and people listed as Negro. These are legal proof that black native families were forming throughout the 1800s and early 1900s. The concentration of these marriages in certain areas, eastern North Carolina, Virginia's Tidewater region, Lowcountry South Carolina, Louisiana parishes, Indian Territory, shows these weren't isolated incidents, but community patterns. Seventh, wills and property records showing mixed families. Estate documents show people leaving property across racial lines. A Creek man leaving land to his Black Creek wife and their children. A woman listed as Indian leaving inheritance to children listed as colored. Property held jointly by families the official classification system said shouldn't exist. Adoption records show native families adopting black children and black families adopting native children. Formal legal recognition of mixed families. Eighth, church records showing integrated congregations, baptism records, marriage records, membership rolls from churches in areas with black native populations show congregations that included both groups. Godparent relationships across racial lines, families worshiping together despite official segregation. Ninth, family Bibles with genealogies that don't match official records, private family Bibles recorded births, marriages and deaths before official registration. Many list tribal affiliations, Cherokee, Creek, Lumbee, for people whose official records say only Negro or colored. These Bibles are primary sources created by the families themselves. They're often more accurate than government records created by clerks who made decisions based on appearance and prejudice. 10th, personal correspondence and diaries, letters between family members, diaries, personal papers, when they survive, reveal people discussing their mixed heritage, their struggles with classification, their frustration at being forced to choose identities that didn't reflect their reality. All of this exists in archives, in courthouses, in family attics, in tribal offices, in state basements, scattered across thousands of locations, hidden but not destroyed. The hiding of Black Indian history wasn't accidental. It was systematic. Let me show you exactly how it was done. First, physical separation of records. Documents related to Black Indians were filed in different locations, depending on how authorities chose to classify them. A marriage between a black person and a native person might be filed under colored marriages in one county and Indian marriages in another, making it nearly impossible to track patterns across jurisdictions. Laws enrollment cards for Indians by blood and freedmen were kept in separate files. Researchers looking at one set wouldn't necessarily know to look at the other, even though many freedmen had native ancestry. Second, poor cataloging and indexing. Many records were never properly indexed. They sit in boxes, unsorted, making them effectively invisible unless you know exactly what you're looking for. County courthouses have boxes labeled simply old records or miscellaneous 1890-1920 that contain birth certificates, marriage licenses, and other documents proving Black native families, but they're not searchable databases. You have to physically go through every document. State archives often have similar problems. Documents are preserved but not accessible. They're in climate-controlled storage, but haven't been digitized or properly cataloged. Third, access restrictions. Some tribal records are restricted to tribal members. Some county records require in-person visits, no online access. Some state archives have limited hours, require appointments, or charge high fees for copying documents. The bureaucracy of access, even when it's not intentionally obstructive, makes comprehensive research nearly impossible. A complete picture would require visiting hundreds of locations across multiple states. Fourth, selective preservation. Some documents were preserved, others were not, and the pattern of what survived and what didn't is revealing. Official government documents, census records, tribal rolls, military records were generally preserved. Personal documents, letters, diaries, family papers were much more likely to be lost, destroyed, or thrown away. This means the official narrative survives in archives, but the personal stories that contradict it often don't. The bureaucratic record that says Negro is preserved. The family Bible that says Cherokee is lost. Fifth, lack of education about how to read the records. Even when documents are accessible, most people don't know how to interpret them. They don't know that mulatto often meant black native. They don't know to track families across multiple censuses. They don't know to look for corrections on birth certificates. Genealogists specializing in black native research have learned to read the codes, spot the patterns, interpret the evidence, but this knowledge isn't widely taught. Sixth, dismissal of oral history. For decades, family stories about native ancestry in black families were dismissed as myth, wishful thinking, or attempts to escape racial prejudice. People who grew up hearing about their Cherokee great-grandmother or Creek grandfather were told these were just family legends. They were actively discouraged from researching. Everyone black thinks they have a Cherokee princess in their family, but when people do the research, they often find that the family stories were accurate. The documents exist. They were just hidden. Seventh, academic marginalization. Researchers who study black native history have been marginalized in academic institutions. Their work is published in smaller journals, taught in fewer courses, cited less frequently. The result: most Americans never learn about black Indians in school. Textbooks don't include them. Curricula skip over them. They're treated as a footnote when they should be a chapter. Eighth, simplified narratives in popular media. Movies, TV shows, popular books, they tell simple stories. Black history is one thing, native history is another. Never the two shall meet. On the rare occasions when black Indians appear in popular media, they're presented as exceptions, unusual cases, not the widespread phenomenon the archives prove they were. Ninth, systems that benefit from separation. Modern tribal citizenship disputes, blood quantum policies, racial classification systems, all of these function more smoothly if black native ancestry is rare or non-existent. Acknowledging widespread black native mixing complicates everything. Who counts as a tribal citizen? How do you apply blood quantum when people have ancestry from multiple groups? What do you do with modern racial categories that don't allow for complexity? It's easier administratively, politically, socially to keep the archives hidden, to let them stay scattered, uncatalogued, inaccessible, to let the official simplified narrative stand. But people are finding the archives, and when they do, it changes everything. First, personal identity transformation. Imagine growing up being told your family stories about native ancestry were myths. Then you find the documents, the census record that lists your great-grandmother as Indian, the birth certificate that originally said Cherokee before it was changed to colored, the Dawes enrollment card that shows your ancestor was rejected based on appearance despite legitimate native ancestry. Suddenly, the family stories aren't myths, they're history. Your identity isn't what the simplified official record said. It's more complex, more interesting, more connected to communities and histories you thought were closed to you. Second, legal and political implications. The archives provide evidence in ongoing tribal citizenship disputes. Freedmen descendants arguing for citizenship can show that their ancestors were recognized as tribal members before bureaucratic reclassification. Birth certificates showing native parentage, marriage records showing integration, enrollment cards showing rejection based only on appearance. Photographs showing physical evidence of native ancestry. All of this becomes legal evidence in contemporary disputes. The archives challenge modern policies. Blood quantum requirements look different when you see how they were applied inconsistently based on racial prejudice. Tribal citizenship criteria look different when you see thousands of people with legitimate native ancestry who were excluded. Third, historical narratives being rewritten. As more archives are digitized and made accessible, researchers are able to see patterns that were invisible when documents were scattered. They're mapping concentrations of Black native families, identifying communities where mixing was common, documenting the systematic nature of reclassification, showing that Black Indians weren't exceptions. They were common enough that the government had to create policies specifically to reclassify them. Books are being written, articles are being published, documentaries are being made. The story is slowly entering public consciousness despite being excluded from mainstream education. Fourth, community reconnection. People are finding relatives they didn't know existed. Black families and native families discovering they're related. Communities that were separated by reclassification finding each other again. Online genealogy communities focused on Black native ancestry are growing. Conferences bring together descendants. Facebook groups connect people researching the same surnames, the same communities, the same patterns of reclassification. Fifth, cultural knowledge being reclaimed. Some descendants are learning native languages their ancestors spoke, studying traditional practices their families maintained, reconnecting with tribal communities their ancestors were forced out of. Afro-Seminole Creole is being documented before the last fluent speakers die. Traditional crafts that mixed African and native techniques are being preserved. Family recipes that combine both cuisines are being shared. Sixth, challenge to classification systems. The archives prove that rigid racial categories are artificial. They were imposed on people whose lived reality was much more complex. Today's descendants are refusing to choose. They're identifying as both Black and native. They're demanding recognition of complex, mixed identities. They're challenging census forms, legal documents, and social systems that force them into single categories. And the more people find the archives, the stronger this movement becomes, because the evidence is undeniable. The documents exist. The families existed. The connections were real. The archives were hidden for 300 years. Scattered across thousands of locations, poorly catalogued, difficult to access, deliberately kept from telling their full story. But technology is changing everything. Census records are being digitized. County courthouses are scanning documents. Tribal offices are creating databases. Family researchers are uploading photos and records to ancestry websites. And as more documents become accessible, patterns emerge. Patterns that prove Black Indians weren't rare. Patterns that show systematic reclassification across multiple states. Patterns that reveal a hidden history affecting hundreds of thousands of families. You can't hide it anymore. The archives are being found. The documents are being shared. The truth is being digitized and distributed faster than it can be suppressed. Every day, someone finds a census record that changes their understanding of their family. Every week, someone discovers a birth certificate that proves the family stories were true. Every month, someone connects with relatives they didn't know existed because reclassification separated their families on paper. Hidden for 300 years, but not anymore. The Black Indian archives are being uncovered document by document, family by family, story by story. And the truth they tell is so different from official history that once you see it, you can't unsee it. If this inspired you to search for your own family's hidden history, subscribe and share. Comment below. Have you found documents that contradicted what you thought you knew about your family? What did you discover in the archives? Because the more people search, the more evidence we find, and the harder it becomes to keep these 300 years of history hidden.